Assalamu alaikum, everyone, and a very good afternoon to you. My name is Sarah Momtaz, and I'm delighted to welcome all of you to the 8th episode in the IWFM UAE webinar series. Today's topic is looking at the wider parameters of FM, and we'll be focusing on the collaboration and integration of FM with property services. We have a fantastic lineup of expert panelists today who will create a platform to engage with you, the audience, to share their knowledge, and of course for you, the audience, to present your questions and comments for us to tackle. Excuse me. So once again, a very warm welcome to today's webinar, which is entitled Property Services, Market-Related Challenges During COVID-19. A very important topic and underemphasized, basically, topic. As I mentioned, I'm very thrilled to be joined by our panelists today who will be talking about their experiences from a strategic FM and service provider perspective. We will be discussing and addressing if and how within their respective organizations and their own personal experiences, what the global pandemic and economic situation has brought to the property services industry. So let me take this opportunity to introduce them to you. Firstly, I'm very happy to welcome Jawad Hussain. He's the General Manager of Place Community Management in Dubai. He's a Bachelor of Commerce and specializes in automation, sustainability, optimization, compliance and client management in the community and property management industry. Jawad's actually been raised in the UAE and has over 18 years of real estate industry experience, working with lead developers such as Demac, MR, Aldar and Azizi Developments. Community and property management is basically his passion. Welcome, Jawad, and it's a pleasure to have you join us today.
It's my pleasure. Thank you very much for this, Sarah. Thank you. Very grateful.
Thanks, Jawad. Our second panelist today is Beverly Goetling, the Head of Owners Association at Dubai Investment Real Estate. Beverly has over 26 years of industry experience, and she's a specialist in mixed-use master developments and actually pioneered the team for the first ever expatriate 99-year lease land and the Owners Association establishment along with RERA. Previously, she worked for Union Properties, the Al Circle Group, K&J and Al Ghurair, and Dubai Investment Park. Her passion is to make a change within OA to ensure that all stakeholders receive the best quality. Warm welcome, Beverly, and thank you very much for joining us this afternoon.
Thank you very much for having me, Sarah.
Thanks, Beverly.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you, Beverly. Final panelist today is Alan Rowlands. He's the GM at 360 Communities, which is a subsidiary of Eltsam Asset Management Group and a leading regional provider of management services to premium communities within the GCC. Alan has over 3 decades of experience in property management, real estate and construction, and has successfully delivered innovative, sustainable and customized solutions for many challenging community management projects. He's known for driving productivity, optimizing processes, budgeting, mitigating costs, and subsequently improving profitability. Hello, Alan, and welcome. It's good to have you with us today.
Good afternoon, Sarah, and the rest of the panelists. Happy to be here. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thanks, Alan. Now, before we start, I'd just like to remind the attendees, as you all know, I'm sure we've got some regular attendees joining us today. It's an interactive session, so please do get involved. As always, we will be having a questions and answer session at the end. If you wish to present your question to a panelist, please feel free to do so by stating your name and also letting us know where you're tuning in from. We'll be standing by to receive your questions, and depending on how much time we have, we will be answering as many as we possibly can. Now, in addition to that, we will, after each of the discussion points, have a straw poll to which there will be 3 possible options for you to choose from. Just select the answer that best suits you. And it's anonymous as always. We won't be capturing your details, so feel free to be as honest as you can. And we will be publishing those results straight after the straw poll. What else should I need to mention? Yes, and the final thing is regarding the recording. This session is being recorded, so we'll be letting you know once it's available on the YouTube channel and obviously on the IWFM website. So before we actually make a start, just want to say a very special thanks to our sponsors, Adib FM and BFM. And I'll just take you through a couple of quick slides related to IWFM in terms of our vision and mission. I'm not going to spend too much time on this because, of course, you can go onto the website and have a look at it for yourself. And also regarding our 4 strategic aims, again, all this information is there on the website. At the end of this session, I've also got some information for you in terms of courses and basically furthering your professional career. So we'll share that with you also. Thank you very much. So as I mentioned, property services, market related is the theme of today's webinar. And this is today's agenda. I'm the moderator, Sarah Momtaz. I've introduced you to the panelists. There's a quick slide about me. Not as important as the panelists today, so we can move straight forward. And here's some information about the team. Thank you very much. Right, let's crack on and get straight into the first discussion point. So I'd like to start with you, if I may, Jawad, on the first discussion point, which is, what significant changes in daily operations have you seen since the COVID-19 pandemic?
COVID-19 surely took the world by storm, and we all know that, and I really don't think so that anybody in any part of the globe was prepared for it. And I think the major changes in the daily operations that we, from a community and property management perspective, we saw that a lot of people were working from home. So that increased the operation significantly. And this was something that not everybody was ready to do. Because, come on, we all know that our house in our Dubai lifestyle is to just crash after a heavy day's work at the office. But now the house was the office. That includes the kids as well. So it was an office/schooling. So everybody was at home. So there was a significant change in the daily operations of the community for us. And I believe utilities, consumables, garbage collection, security, there was a spike in every services that was provided in the community. And I don't think so that was actually, most of the communities were even prepared for that. That's my perspective on things.
Yeah, no, I mean, like you said, it definitely took us all by storm. I wanted to ask you, Jawad, I mean, you've spoken about a number of different items there in terms of some of the services that are provided to you. Have you seen any differences in the contractual terms of the service contractors and service providers since COVID? And if so, what are they?
See, I think the major impact on COVID, first of all, obviously, everybody was at home. So everybody was started to judge the service provider's performance because now they are at home, so they can see that the tissue paper lying on the floor or the coffee stain, how long it takes them to actually clean it up. So it was not that when you're in a rush to go to the office and you're already getting late, so you kind of tend to ignore everything on your way to the parking lot to your vehicle, and then you rush out of the community. It was way different. Everybody were in the community. They were walking around. They were like looking at every little thing that they have missed over the past year living in that community. So that put a lot of pressure on the service providers to perform it. Things were not like before. It wasn't only the community management organizations auditing them and checking them. It was every member of the community auditing them and checking their performance and see how they're doing. So there were significant changes post-COVID, especially because of the fact that there was a tremendous pressure to actually bring the service charges down from every perspective. And on top of it, everybody being at home, it means you cannot compromise on the service standards in any way. So it means you had a challenge to bring the service prices down, increase the service standards, or without compromising the service standards. So that was for every community management division, I believe, out there. They have to be very innovative and very adaptable to new ideas and out of the box thinking, because COVID was something that is not that part of our training sessions or something like that, saying that, okay, when COVID hits, so you do this or you do that. No, it just came, it took the world by storm, and now we had to just adapt. And not to mention the whole concept of uncertainty, that how long will this go on? Will there be
Yeah.
a cure? Yeah, absolutely. So, and that uncertainty following, and at the same time, the devastation in the economic and of the whole world, with people losing their jobs and everything. So all these put into a pot and melted into the responsibilities of the community and property management people. So now they have to find ways to reduce service charges and increase service standards. So I believe there were quite a few changes. Very innovative mechanisms were put out there. There were changes in the scope. More and more people started adapting to more performance output based contracts, and instead of manpower based contracts. And then there were, depending on the size of the community and the complications of the community, like being mixed use or single use, it depends on output plus minimum manpower, because at the same time you have to make sure that the service providers are ready to come on board as well, because if you keep on squeezing them, the bubble will burst at one stage. So yes, there were tremendous changes in the scope and terms and conditions of the service providers and their contracts, but mostly positive. So they had the room to breathe as well. At the same time, we get to get the performance out of them, out of their own free will. Because remember, things are not like before. Everybody is in the building. That your apartment or your house is a school plus an office, and you need to take that frustration out on somebody. And the moment you step out, it's the service provider.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Thank you, Joad. Let's bring Beverly into the conversation. Let's have a listen about your daily challenges operationally, Beverly.
Well, the challenge is taking on every client, like Jawad says, and yes, at the end of the day, transparency is the most important thing. From my experience from South Africa to Dubai, doing the same thing, which is owners association, property management. The first thing that you have to look at is the client, is the stakeholder, is the person who pays that service charges, want a quality of life, want to come from work and come to something that they say, right, I'm home. But unfortunately, COVID happened like it happened. It took us by storm. But the best part is that having the AI, which is the artificial intelligence, or even with the systems that people have, having to be able to, on a click of the finger, you can do everything. And this is what we've done. Whether it was back in 2003, 2004, when we sent out blast emails for communication, now it's made easier. There's no excuse for me not to be in contact with my owners. And to be honest with you, yeah, they do have questions, but it comes with, you have to have that patience to answer the question. And like Jawad said, and I concur here, clients are so meticulous, they see everything, nothing, there's not a spot that doesn't go out of its way. And try to explain that your service is being delayed. We didn't stop it, but we are trying extremely hard to make sure that the service provider can accommodate us within the space and time that we have. Unfortunately, it's a little bit difficult when you can't reduce the service charges and they're still paying the same thing. And no matter whether you say you take a delay on service charges, you do a schedule of payment, it doesn't really matter. If a client doesn't see 5 security on site, 10 soft service housekeeping, swimming pool attendants, gym not being in place, we're not making sure that we comply with the COVID rules for health and safety, you are being scrutinized with a fine comb. But it's something that, you know, as per what we do as our quality, quantity, and spirit of work, communication, transparency is something that I strive for. Communicate with your owners, your stakeholders, your service provider. Have the ability to be able to have that stamina to respond. Then you get 60% where you need to be.
Yeah. No, it's a very interesting point. I mean, again, you've mentioned a number of different activities there. So what I'd like to ask you, Beverly, is what are the most significant factors when trying to sort of promote this unified approach from the relevant stakeholders to ensure the best possible service standards?
I'm going to have to come back again to communication. Transparency on a daily basis, weekly basis. Show them what they've got. Show them the contracts. Show them the services that they're getting. If there is a tweak in the service, if there's a delay from your garbage collection for 2 hours, inform the community. Never let your stakeholders inform you. Be on top of it. Provide them with the ability, or provide them with saying, okay, what would you suggest? In the coming weeks, we're going to be having this situation. We're going to have, when we had the lockdown from March, it happened so fast. We had, I think, maybe 4 days notice to say from the 16th to the 20th or 21st, there's going to be a total lockdown, and only for certain aspects where clients can wait for medical, I think that service providers, that is a necessity, can go out there. And that was really difficult because at the end of the day, it was up to us as OA that had to, you know, make sure that our service providers are allowed to come to the projects, to every vertical project that there is, because at the end, you know, we need to have that service done. If you don't, you have a problem. You have a health and safety problem. You have a problem where clients will bombard you. And being transparent, being part of a daily communication on your stakeholders, you cannot go wrong there. And they're going to have difficult questions. And then when it comes to your service provider, to try and work together in the best possible way. This is the fundamental thing. The communication that you have, you're the middle person between the service provider and the stakeholder. So you are the intermediary. You are the person that will say, I will make it happen. I will fix it. And I will try to fix it before you see that it's broken. And yes, it was hard. And now, you know, I think that all of the panelists can agree with me here that, yes, we have a different sort of setback, which is about our health and our safety, which we had exactly back in during the crisis. We had in the crisis where you as an OA hired a company and then they went bust. And you just didn't have that service provider anymore, and then you had not just a lack in service, you had a no service, delay in service, and having to bring somebody on board again, it takes about 45 days. But the client doesn't see that, the stakeholder doesn't see 45 days. He sees, I've paid you and I'm not getting the service that I'm getting, and how did you let the service provider slip through your fingers? Same sort of difficulties that we had back in from 2009, but just different way. It's still the same stakeholder and your service provider in a different time. And it's something that I also feel like when you're doing a tendering, you involve your community, which Dubai Lands Department does provide us to do that, and it's part of our audit that that we have to have a committee, then a tendering committee in which you involve your community, and it's something that they try to emphasize since back in 2006 when they did things manually at that time, and from having the community involved and understanding definitely how the SOWs work and what they would like to improve, and making that decision and helping them.
Yeah, no, it's very valid points. I'm glad you mentioned the service charge aspect. We will be coming to that soon. Over to Alan, who's been waiting ever so patiently. I'm very keen to hear your thoughts on this, Alan.
So this specific question on the screen, clearly the main change has been we've all had to relearn what to do when an infection happens in our building. So there's been a whole raft of new service delivery standards that we've had to devise, complete new scope of work for disinfecting buildings, deep cleaning, and the processes the processes that we've had to devise when and if an infection happens in any one of the towers or vertical horizontal communities that we manage. So the significant change in daily operations has clearly been the addition of all of those COVID related elements of service provision that we've all had to learn. How do we deep clean a building? What is the process we embark on when we find that someone in our community has tested positive? And I think Beverly is also right in saying, communication is a big part of that. Everyone in the building wants to know. They want to know what's going on, and you really can't. You've got to communicate. You've got to be honest, and you've got to be open and fully transparent with what's going on in the building. You can't just sort of all of a sudden send a whole bunch of guys in with hazmat suits, and people are wondering, oh my God, what's happening? Is it an alien invasion or what? So communication is very important, but clearly the most significant change in daily operations is, one, how it has impacted on our existing service providers. That is the frontline guys that have to actually be in the building, whether there is COVID-19 threat or not. And also from our own staff perspective, our people we really see as the frontline heroes as well, because those people can't abdicate our responsibility to be in the building. You can't manage deliverables, you can't manage contractors, you can't supervise, you can't do the things that need to be done in a building without physically being there. And so the significant changes for us have been how we keep our people safe, how we keep the building safe, and learning all of the aspects of the threat that gets posed when there is an infection in the building. So I guess from our point of view, that's the most significant change.
Yeah, I'm very glad you mentioned, well, all three of you have, to be fair, the impact that FM has had. I'd like to ask you a bit more about that, Alan, if I may. I mean, what specifically in terms of impact has FM had in ensuring service delivery standards during COVID? Because, you mentioned the new regulations in terms of the health and safety. How able have FM been to sort of step up to that plate?
So everyone has a role to play in this, and FM service providers, if we sort of took the three core services being MEP, housekeeping and security, they don't work in isolation. They don't walk into our building and expect us to tell them what to do, because each of their companies will have their own protocols in place. So this is an important part in dealing and picking the contractors you use in a building. You really need to work with companies that have got the depth and the background to be able to to make their workers safe in the building, because we as a community manager don't actually employ people to work in the building. We rely on the subcontractors that we contract to work in the building. And so having said that, our supervision is essentially to make sure that they've got their protocols in place, elevators are still going to go up and down, and pumps are still going to go on and off. Water pressure still needs to be maintained. Air conditioning still needs to be on. Internal maintenance still needs to be carried out. Planned preventive maintenance still needs to be carried out. And so, we would expect that our FM service providers, once they've got an internal process from their own company to make sure that their workers are safe, and secondly, that the people that we have to have in the building, our assistant facility managers or our community managers, or the people that have to be there, our frontline workers are also kept safe. Yeah. And all of that then flows down to keeping the occupants, the residents, safe as well. And so I guess it's given us two different categories of of service delivery. The service delivery, firstly, for our existing contractors, how that has been impacted by the COVID-19 threat. So we're looking to see how they've dealt with it, what new protocols they've brought in to manage it. And then there's the whole service delivery aspect of the additional services required because of COVID-19, which are deep cleaning, disinfection, etc. And so, you know, that for us has been, in terms of deliverable, how we've had to manage it.
Yeah. No, fantastic points. Thank you. Sorry, go ahead.
Just one other thing I just wanted to add. You always have to be a little careful when talking about deliverables. You know, when this first happened, you know, and I probably, Beverly and Joanne can also remember the first day when somebody in one of our buildings got infected, and it was that, my God moment, what do we do now? Because it was all very new to us. And, of course, you know, all of the residents are looking to us as the community managers to say, well, how are you dealing with this? You know, what's going to happen? Are we going to have to fumigate the whole building? Do we all have to evacuate? What's going to happen? And so, you know, we all learned very quickly who could deep clean, who we could use as a disinfection company, how we would go about, you know, dealing with the deep clean and disinfection, etc., and which companies were able to provide those services. And the interesting thing we found was at the very beginning stage, you weren't too worried about how much it cost. You just said, can you be there in 1 hour? Yes, come, and then you worry about the bill later. Well, interestingly enough, we sort of found after about a month to 2 months of that, those companies that were still maintaining their same price, we found that there were many other companies coming into the scene who were prepared to do it for significantly less. So you need to be very careful from the, you know, management perspective to ensure that when you're getting a service done and it becomes more of a typical normal service to provide, you've just got to watch those costs as well. Because, you know, you will get service providers who are trying to actually make some money out of this as well. So you've got to watch that.
All very good points. Thank you very much, all three of you. Let's go straight on to the straw poll questions. Now, this is the part of the program, if you like, that is for the audience really to get involved in. So the question is, if COVID-19 continues to heavily impact property services throughout 2021, what mitigation measures should companies introduce? So please choose one of the three below possible answers. First one is cost reduction strategy. Second one is increased portfolio of vendors to ensure availability of services, I believe that's supposed to be. And the third one is revised collection strategy. So we'll throw that out to the audience. What do the panelists think? Which one do you think is going to come up trumps? Anyone?
Cost reduction strategy, without a doubt.
Cost reduction? Are we unanimous on that?
Collection strategy.
Well, we're about to find out. So if we can please reveal the results of the straw poll. Cost reduction strategy at 59%.
Alan wins.
29% increased portfolio of vendors to ensure availability of services, and only 12% revised collection strategy. I thought it would actually be the other way around. I thought C and B would be the other way around. Very interesting. Thank you, audience, that you'll have another opportunity to join in on straw poll 2 after our second question. Now, I'm conscious of the time, so I'm going to race through this. Well, coming back to Jawad, since the pandemic, Jawad, has there been any impact to service charge collection? And if so, how have you managed this? Controversial question.
This is exactly the question of the COVID century, isn't it? And there is no way I can say no. Indeed, there was a huge impact on service charge collection because of the pandemic, because of the huge economical downturn that it caused globally. As people lost their jobs, their sources of income, the market mechanism and dynamics changed tremendously. It was not what it used to be. And on top of it, we were ready for a pandemic. And the last pandemic was either the Spanish flu or the bubonic plague before that. So there were generations growing up without any pandemic, and then there comes a pandemic and we just didn't know what to do. So there was a huge financial turmoil and people losing their jobs and organizations and multinational corporations not knowing how to behave in these uncertain times definitely triggered the service charge collection, because the sources of income for every individual was hugely affected. So
Yeah.
who had jobs were working on reduced pays, and there was a chunky amount of the population that was actually not having a job at all. And the time of uncertainty, and no sign of vaccines at that time made it more uncertain for everybody to actually that where are we going with all of this, and what's the end game. So that uncertainty kind of added more to the instability of the market. But
Yeah.
with time, we realized that, okay, there are certain vaccines being tested and being released in the market. We also as human beings, started adapting to the new normal, which is like masks. So which started as surgical masks, became more a fashion accessory, and everybody's got their matching masks now. So adaptability of us have always helped us actually survive the test of time as human beings. So service charge collection, yeah.
Sorry, Jawad, just because I want to just press you on in terms of the strategy. If I can just ask you, what is the best strategy that you've basically embraced in terms of the service charge collection since the pandemic?
At this moment, I think the more what I can speak for myself, and what we have done is we have made it more clear, transparent to the stakeholders.
Yeah.
And we became as one instead of actually working against each other. And we have asked for their help to actually help us in collect service charges. And at the same time, the support of regulations from regulatory body has also played a vital role in all of this. So all of us adding a little bit of our efforts together has actually added a lot to the service charge collection rate. And at the same time, we are being more humane as well. So we are a bit more flexible with people who actually kind of lost their sources of income. So we try to assist them at the same time. But yes, we do remind them that there is an obligation that they have to pay towards the community.
Yeah.
So easy payment terms, but as long as the cash flow is coming, because let's remember that our business runs on the cash flow.
Yeah, no, that's no, that all makes a lot of sense. I like the fact that you mentioned that you've become more humane. Who would have thought community managers becoming humane? I like that.
Robotic.
Alan doesn't seem to be very amused by that. Okay, let's bring Beverly into the conversation. What have you done to really kind of improve the impact on the service charge collection?
Look, every OA has to sign up with the developer with the management agreement. Now, just like you do with insurance, you have all risk, depending on what kind of all risk you want to have. So I've been lucky for the 21 years that I've been here working for developers. I've been lucky that we do put a contingency plan in, and that is on the basis, it's not to foresee anything bad happening, but it was to foresee that when we have a handover during defects liability period on our vertical projects, that we have something in hand, because at the end of the day there's still a pro rata rate on service charges that goes out to the owners, but not every unit is handed over, not every unit is sold, and the service provider is not going to wait for his service charges when we give the key handover or give them their title deed, whether it's a lease title deed on usage of land or whether it's a freehold title deed. At the end of the day, collection is collection accordance to what there is out there as per your AMCs, and your service provider wants his money. Otherwise, you're going to have a lack in services. So I've been quite lucky in the aspect that the developer gives us a bailout for 5 months to 6 months. and then we can give them this back within, you know, you've got to be really good in your collections, and you've got to put your money where your mouth is. If you were OA and you say to the developer, give me a handout and I promise to give this back to you within the time frame, you better make sure you stick to it so that you can have that. So you can provide for the owners and explain to them, again, transparency, that this is what you're going to do as an OA, and this is what you're going to try to alleviate, to alleviate the service provider getting paid and them getting the service that they deserve. Now, collections, yes, it's difficult. And sometimes you get 30% collection, sometimes you get 95% collection, but you look at it in a way that if you use a service provider, a good company, a stable company with a very good portfolio, over all your portfolio as OA, you have the opportunity there as well to say, okay, this is how I can manage service charge collection to pay my service provider. This project is low, it's a little bit low. That project's a little bit higher in collection. So let me close up the gap on either way, and then speak to your service provider and say, look, not expecting you to give me the 100% service. I'm expecting you to give me the 80% service over all my projects, but I'm good for it. And this way you, again, transparency to your owners and say to them, guys, this is how many people have paid the percentage, and this is my contracts that is pending, but I'm going to close the gap because the developer is helping us there. There are ways to do it.
I think you've made some really good points, especially when you talked about, you know, the FM company, because I actually wanted to ask you, you know, how FM companies have been impacted, because I know obviously a lot of FM companies have been impacted because they've not been getting paid as a lack of service charge. So thank you very much for that, Beverly. Let's bring Alan back into the conversation and get his thoughts on this, please.
Well, service charge collection has always been very, very challenging in this part of the world, and that's because we really have no enforcement procedures. And so it comes down to one of two things. People don't pay service charges because they simply won't pay them, or people don't pay service charges because they are unable to pay them. And I think that the latter, has been something that we've had to cope with during COVID-19. Jawad has mentioned the layoffs, people losing jobs, companies downsizing. All of those factors have had a massive impact personally on people in our buildings. And we've tried to help them as much as we can by entering into payment arrangements, just trying to bring the human factor in and helping people as best we can that find themselves in a predicament. But to be brutally honest, until we can actually get some form of enforcement procedure that is going to impact on those people that simply refuse to pay, we're going to be in this boat for a very long time, because we're unable to really do anything effective that's going to impel somebody to pay. You know, service charges are not an option; they're a mandatory obligation. You buy a unit in a freehold property, you are becoming, as a mandatory, you are becoming a member of an owners association. You can't opt out of that. It's mandatory membership. And similarly, your service charges are a mandatory levy that you must pay. If you don't pay them in other jurisdictions around the world, you'll be taken to court or your unit will be sold. And whilst the law here has provision for liens to be attached to units and to be sold, we haven't been able to effectively do that. So service charge collection is the lifeblood of the industry. Definitely this year has been massively challenging. And as you said, the very simple follow-on effect of that is that service providers walk off the job because they're not paid.
They're not getting paid.
Even worse, utilities get turned off because the utility company has not been paid. And we're seeing that happening now, where electricity has been switched off, bulk AC deliveries are being turned off. And I think that unless there is some resolution to this whole problem of enforcement, it's going to become a lot more prevalent. There are buildings out there. There are buildings out there now that are in massively critical positions.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more on that, Alan. I think you've nailed it on the head. But I just want to ask you, I mean, do you think that something similar to a service charge holiday is something that's feasible in terms of a strategy for asset owners and OAMs?
Well, I'm smiling because you say, well, let's have a service charge holiday. Well, which part of your maintenance services would you like to take a holiday on? Should we have a holiday on your lifts operation? Or should we have a holiday on your water being pumped unit? If you live in your own villa on a plot of land somewhere, you can shut your villa down, turn your power and your water off, and go and build a bivouac in the woods and go and live an alternative lifestyle and have a holiday and pay all your maintenance costs. Unfortunately, we live in a community of one of our towers is 82 levels high with 13 high-speed elevators, and any one of those services, if you turn them off, the building becomes non-functional.
Yeah.
And so, Sarah, we have been whittling away at service charges, not just for this last year. We have been whittling away at service charges for the past 5 to 10 years for two reasons. One, that owners obviously see that the service charge really has a massive impact, particularly the investors, on their ROI. And secondly, the regulators are simply saying, we want happier communities, we want you to, slash your service charges. So I think that there has to be a step back. Personally, I think there has to be a step back from everybody to understand exactly why service charges are levied and what they represent. We as the community manager don't go and send you a bill just for the heck of it. We send you a bill because we need that money to service your building. And the interesting thing is that when we issue a service charge, we're only issuing a service charge for the money we need for that year. Now, if our service charge collection rate is 50%, that means we've only got 50% of the money we need to pay service providers and put utilities on for that year. So that's where you see service providers just simply walking off the site because they're not being paid. And taking a holiday on service charges, it's just not going to help anybody, I'm afraid.
No, it's a very valid point, and I think you hit the nail on the head. And especially in this part of the world, I think people who buy units in buildings need to understand that they're not just purchasing that unit, that they are responsible for the operation of the full building, as opposed to, as you mentioned, someone who buys a villa. And it makes absolute sense. Thank you very much, Alan. Let's go on to the second straw poll. Again, I am conscious of time. I want to get some Q&As in, so I'm going to try and speed it up. Right, so the audience, how important is it to nurture existing relationships with clients and service providers? How can these best be retained and developed? Option 1, they're not important. Prompt payments are more critical. Option 2, they're semi-important. A balanced approach gives the best results. And option 3 is very important. Good relationships equal extended courtesies. Panelists, what do you think is going to come up trumps? We'll give the audience a few seconds to answer. Anyone?
Toss up between 2 and 3 for me.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
I'll go for 2.
I think they're all going with you, Alan, because you got the first one right. So, okay, let's see. Let's see what comes up. Can we publish the results, please? Oh, wow. Overwhelming, 94%. Look at that, guys. That's actually quite surprising. I thought that the option B would have got that. So just goes to show you how important relationships are. Superb. Thank you very much to the audience. Let's race through to the final question. Let's start with you, Jawad. And I'm sorry, guys, I'm going to have to ask you to keep your responses a little bit brief.
Why can't we start with Alan?
Sorry?
Why can't we start with Alan for a change?
Well, he's just had the floor. We've got to come back to you. We're doing it in order. So, okay. Jawad, what will sustainable property services look like in the future if the work from home model becomes commonplace? Interesting question. Your thoughts?
This is something I personally believe that, okay, sustainable property services. This is something related to very much automation and depending on the design of the community itself as well. But currently, COVID really expedited this whole concept of working from home. It was not exactly a huge, let's say, by 2019, there was a very small group of businesses that used to operate from home. Let's say people running websites and online payment and online selling services. But it was in a very slow process moving forward. But when COVID hit, it kind of expedited like a catalyst this whole process of automation with the speed that we did not expect it to be. And working from home is somewhat becoming the new norm. But at the same time, we have to decide that who all can actually work from home. Is it applicable to every industry, or there's a small industry that can actually work from home? And and is everybody's home ready to be turned into an office and a school? Because it was never part of our lifestyle. We used home to actually just go and relax and spend the weekend sort of thing, because most of the time as the lifestyle over here is that we spend a lot of time at work. And now suddenly that work time has actually been stopped, and you're spending that time at home. The kids are at home too, and they're schooling, and you have a one-bedroom or a two-bedroom. You've never prepared or spent money in making a proper office for yourself, because that was never part of the plan. But suddenly COVID comes and everything changes. So now that dining table turns into an office station for you. And on the other side of your office is your kids studying as well at the same time. So, and that's one part of it. Now, the second part of it, certain industries like ourselves and the facility management and property management, can we actually work from home? Are we designed, or our requirements are in such a way, our KPIs, SLAs are in such a way that can we work from home? So that is something that we are still busy working on, and that the whole industry is not very certain about this working from home concept, at least to me.
Yeah.
I think still work in progress. And as we come out with new details on COVID and vaccines and its effectiveness and how it works in future, I think only then we'll be able to have more clarity on this concept. And to me, for the moment, it's just an enigma, and we learn as we move forward.
Well, let me ask you this then, Jawad, as a property services professional, what do you see are the challenges for asset owners if the commercial space aspect of things continues to decline in demand? You spoke about working from home. A lot of people won't necessarily need as much office space. Do you think this is going to be a challenge for asset owners in the future?
This is one of those uncertainties that we have at the moment, because I was discussing the same thing with a friend of mine, and we reviewed quite a few points, because like one of the points is that, first of all, in order to do any business in Dubai, you have to have a trade license. And in order to have a trade license, you need to have an official office space and a PO box number and a location. And in order to do that, you have to rent an office space or buy an office space. Now, there's a lot of office spaces available, and they were going pretty good in terms of rentals, in terms of businesses, and COVID came and kind of changed the whole concept of everything. But at the same time, what we realized that in the end of the day, that not everybody in the office can actually work from home. There is certain amount of people needs to be in the office, and now those organizations who are actually working from the office, they kind of need slightly bigger space, because of the fact that now there has to be a huge distance between the staff who's working from the office. So the requirement is there, and regulatory requirements are there, and at the same time, not everybody can work from home. So it means there is a certain percentage of your staff or your business requirement requires you to be.
I think I'm lost your sound. Sorry, Jawad. We can't hear you. I'm not sure if you can hear me, but I'll bring you back into the conversation. Thank you for that. Let's go over to Beverly to get your thoughts on the future, or the sustainable future, of property services.
Working from home is something that's going to have to happen. It's happening now already. And it's like Jawad said, yeah, you end up spending more. On a commercial front, you still have to abide by the requirements as per law to have an office space, whether you purchase or you rent it. And if you purchase it, it becomes a service charge project, and therefore, do you do a service charge like we do at the moment, 25% of the balcony? But this is something that it's going to take some time. Now, whether we want to work from home or not work from home, you ask for a service charge holiday, that's when you're not going to get a service charge holiday, because your building and your, like Alan said, your pumps, your building, everything is working harder, because now you are at your office is your home. Your quality of life is deteriorating because your kids are home, your wife is home, you're working from home, they're doing schooling from home, everything is happening from home. So when do you take a vacation? When you walk through the garden to tell the owners association the landscaping is not up to date? So working from home, I think it's going to be a little bit difficult within Dubai for that to happen, because whether you work from home, you take a reduction in your salary, it impacts the worker, it impacts the commercial side of things, it impacts the investor. So I would have to say here, I'm not confident with answering that this will be something that will be positive for the future, whether it comes to our income, our ROI, our investment, our having to do an audit statement of your company and how you work, and quality of life with your family. How do you, it's just going to be a little bit difficult.
Yeah, I think it's probably one of those things where, depending on the job that you do and where you live, it's just so many other factors that come into it. I just want to ask you this, Beverly, how relevant should the focus on the environment be to property developers and asset owners in the years to come?
Well, very relevant. I think that when it comes to a developer, from concept design, designing a project that is sustainable for the future, on energy saving, on the fact that you design it in the aspect that you're striving for going to reduce the services, and that is mainly your energy levels, your DIY, your AC bill, etc. However, being in UAE, we go for beauty, we go for design, we go for the best architects that is around. But I think now, in order to have an investment, and a good investment, whether it is an end user investor or international investor, to get your ROI, we need to look at a building that is designed in a way that will save us on every aspect.
Yeah, no, good point. Thank you very much, Beverly. Before I bring Alan back into the conversation, just want to let the audience know that the questions that have come in so far, we've already actually pretty much discussed them. So if you have any last minute questions you want to pose to our panelists, please send them through now. And let's go over to Alan to get his thoughts on this discussion point.
So the work from home thing, apart from all becoming experts in working Zoom and Teams meetings, even for old boomers like me, I think that work from home has actually given us an opportunity, and the specific opportunity is that we can leverage the technology that we've all learned to use to manage teams across remote locations. And in addition, we can start to look wider globally, geographically, for talent, without the huge cost of having to import that talent geographically. So I think that, we've looked at the opportunities of even sending team members back to their home countries and working from their home countries. And so the whole work from home element has raised an awful lot of technology-based questions about how we go about our business. And, I think that probably the most important thing is, as I say, we all found out about Zoom and Teams. I mean, they've always been there, and people have used them primarily probably to keep in touch with their family and their folk back home. But all of a sudden, you know, Zooms and Teams is just, you know, the way it works. And that has opened a whole range of opportunities for us.
Yeah. Now, I'm glad you mentioned tech, because I wanted to actually ask you what your thoughts on prop tech are and the adoption of prop tech, and if we're going to see some sort of shift from the traditional approach, and if it's going to have a significant impact on the future of property services.
Sure. So leaving the prop tech part aside of the work from home and all of the technology platforms you need to do that, in terms of customer engagement, prop tech for us has been about looking at contactless solutions. So, you know, rather than face-to-face meetings in office, people coming in to pay bills using checks, cash, etc. We've devised quick pay solutions, obviously mobile apps, 24/7 online service, talk bots, chat bots. All of that kind of stuff is stuff that we've really had to ramp up on, so that we're minimizing human involvement. And while some people may not like that, I mean, it's just the way the world is going. Bank branches are closing all over the world. People are just not required to go to a bank, to go to a teller anymore. And similarly, when they're requiring services, I mean, I can't remember the last time I didn't use a mobile app for paying my telephone bill or my electrical bill, and or transfer money or talk with my bank. I mean, you just don't do it anymore. So that's probably from the customer engagement point of view where prop tech has had a massive impact.
Yeah.
In terms of facilities management, there's an awful lot of talk about Internet of Things, IoT, artificial intelligence. You know, IoT really relies on you know, installing sensors in a building, and what you're trying to do is you're trying to make an intelligent building, one that talks to you rather than having to have teams of people running around doing preventive maintenance. The uptake on that has been relatively slow, and I think it'll take a little while more for that to come about, because I think prop tech is something that really needs to be thought about at the design stage of a building. It's very hard to retrofit you know, buildings with really good prop tech stuff. So I think that, you know, prop tech is a very, very wide issue, isn't it? I mean, you know, you can talk about the use of drones and infrared technology for looking at the facade of your building and looking for hotspots and looking for water leakages, and there's all sorts of stuff that comes to mind. And there's no doubt that as technology improves, we're going to see an amazing change in the way we manage our buildings because of that. So at the end of it, just with the last statement I would like to make, you know, we really want our buildings to be intelligent and to tell us when they need some tender loving care, rather than us having to go around constantly to check on them. So that's pretty much where prop tech is going to work for us.
Good point. And as an FM professional, we share your sentiments exactly. Thank you very much for that, Alan. Let's go to the final straw poll question. It's the last opportunity for the audience to get involved. And again, we're talking about the same controversial subject about commercial space. So guys, how important is it for asset owners to think about repurposing commercial space post the pandemic? Is it A, not important, commercial space has not been affected? Is it B, semi-important, a balanced approach in case of worst scenario? Or C, very important, this is the best contingency strategy? Right, last guesses, panelists, which one do you think is going to come up trumps?
C.
Well, I would say three most likely, but 2 possibly.
3 or 2? Okay, I think we've... Okay, well, we're about to find out. Can we please release the results? Oh, 56%. People have sat on the fence on that one. Very good. So it's a balanced approach, which actually does make a lot of sense, because as Jawad, Beverly, and of course Alan has mentioned, we don't know what's going to happen in the future. We've just got to be prepared for it somehow. Thank you very, very much. We haven't got any questions that have come in that we've not already discussed, guys. So therefore, I'm going to wrap this session up. And I'd like to, first of all, obviously thank the panelists for their time. Unfortunately, we've come to the end of the webinar. It's been an absolute pleasure hosting these sessions. I hope you've all enjoyed it as much as I have. And please be sure to join us for the next webinar series. We'll be giving you up some details on when that's going to be coming out. We might be making some changes to the way we do things, possibly introduce some CPDs as well, but we will keep you posted on that. Huge thank you to Jawad, Beverly and Alan for sharing their experiences and knowledge, and of course to our support team back in the UK. And I'd like to also mention our sponsors again, which is Adib FM and BFM. Thank you again for your loyal sponsorship. Now, some dates for your diaries, guys. Coming up throughout the year, as you all know, IWFM put on a series of fantastic courses for you to improve your professional skills. I'm not going to go through them. They're all there on the screen. You can visit the website for obviously for more details. Next one's happening in March. And you'll have the full training calendar and courses calendar there on the website. Follow us on social media. You'll be able to keep up to date with all of that stuff there as well. And I mentioned CPDs. So basically, if you want to learn more, again, some more information on the website. Please feel free to visit the website. Look at the IWFM Academy and the calendar to get some information. All very, very noteworthy events that I'm sure you'll find of huge interest. And before we let you go, oh, good thing that that's there. The CPD code for this particular webinar is on your screen now, so you can use that, you know, add it to your professional development, and it's all counted in terms of hours. So please feel free to do that. Like I said, a recording of the session will be released soon. So in case you don't catch that number now, you'll be able to get it later on, and it's going to be available on the website. We will be having a quick mini survey for the attendees, asking you a couple of questions on how we've done and how we can improve our webinars moving forward. So please, before you sign off, do feel free to participate in that. And it's a thank you and goodbye from me. Thank you again, Beverly, Alan and Jawad. Have a lovely evening. Thank you to the audience. Stay safe and we'll see you soon. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.